Exiles, Talkative here with an exclusive Path of Exile 2 announcement. You all know I am conducting a massive hype train in the lead up and after Path of Exile 2's early access release, and I am happy to report, as a part of that train, I will be interviewing game director on Path of Exile 2, Jonathan Rogers, for the third time live on Twitch and YouTube on Tuesday, November 26th at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 11 o'clock p.m. CET. I am so excited, and in this video, we're going over the entire hype train that we are going to go on. It has been finalized. I am asking all of you to help me curate the question list that I'm going to ask Jonathan Rogers. I am getting an hour of his time, literally 1.5 weeks before the biggest grinding gear games launch ever. I am aghast. I am shocked. I am so happy. I'm not wasting any time, and I'm getting the best questions for new players and the most important players among us to Jonathan for him to answer in front of everyone. And I'm also talking a little bit about something that will be happening today later, but that's for the end of the video. Without further ado, let's get into my current question list for Jonathan Rogers. And if you'd like, leave your question ideas below. The most liked questions are more likely to get added to the list. But before we dive too deeply into the video, make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. Doing this is completely free and is the absolute best way to support the channel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So this is the layout I am going for. I have a category, I have the question, a probable answer, and yes, this time mod messages. Before we get into the questions, a little bit of history on my time interviewing Jonathan Rogers. Time number 1 in March of this year. Disastrous. I had audio issues. I wasn't paying attention to chat. I didn't have communication with my mods. Oh my goodness, mistake after mistake. Will not happen this time. I am far more professional, far more prepared. Interview number 2 happened in June at the LA event for consoles, and the audio was bad again. I was recording off my phone. My phone was sitting on the table, so you could hear me tapping nervously, and Jonathan was a little bit muffled. Number 3, third time's the charm, right? I have a much more professional setup. I will definitely be watching chat and paying attention to my moderators. And Jonathan Rogers and I, we've talked at least 4 times now, 4, 5 separate occasions. I feel very confident speaking with him. He is so easy to interview. He loves talking about the game. You can tell that he's passionate, and I could probably ask him 6 of these 20 or so prepared questions that I'm about to showcase to all of you and fill the entire hour. Good thing though, I'm a bit of a chatter myself, and while I'm not going to interrupt him with positive affirmations as I did in that first interview, you'll all remember, good, yeah, great, fantastic, GGG rocks, yeah, Jonathan, I understand, great. You all will remember that. That's not going to happen again, and while that won't happen again, I have no problem, perhaps, if I think it's necessary, prodding him along to the next question so we can get through some excellent content during that hour that we are chatting live to him. Now, I'm asking for your questions here today because we do only have 1 hour. Reminder, Grinding Gear Games is launching Path of Exile 2 on December 6th into early access. I'm interviewing Jonathan November 26th. That's a week and a half before. Dude is busy. Can't believe he took the time out of his schedule to give me light of day. Massive respect, massive thank you to Jonathan, Grinding Gear Games, Nick, Blake, everybody who helped coordinate this. So thankful. However, I might not be able to take questions from the chat. While the mods will be watching the chat, while I will be watching the chat, your best chance of having a question added to my list is by leaving it in the comments below to this YouTube video. Seriously, if it's upvoted very massively, I will add it to the list. Maybe I'll add the top 3 or 4 questions from YouTube to the list. Don't make them too memey, everybody. Josh Strife Hayes already asked who would win in a fight. Not Mark. Jonathan or Chris. Don't need to ask him that again. Perhaps a different silly question I'd be okay with, but not that one. Anyways, let's look at my question set because perhaps the question you want answered is already here in my list. Like I said a few minutes ago, split it into categories. Right now we have new players, which I am focusing on for this interview. I think this is the time when I'm going to be getting a lot of new player eyes on not only my channel, but all of Path of Exile 2. This lead up to early access release, new players are going to be typing in PoE2 gameplay, PoE2 interviews, PoE2 news, that stuff into YouTube. I want to speak directly to them from Jonathan, getting his opinion on how they might experience Path of Exile 2 and what they should expect. So that is my top category. Next up is general development. After that, I have some questions on items, 1 ascendancy question, 3 combat questions, 3 miscellaneous questions. So I have 18 questions in total right now. And then because the live stream has not happened yet as of recording this video, I have a bunch of questions that might be dedicated to the live stream. And if something pops up on the live stream and it makes you think of an excellent question, make sure to return to this video, leave a comment, go to the Discord, plug it in there. The Discord link is below, by the way, and perhaps I'll see it, think it's a great question, add it to the list. But for now, these are my questions. We'll start off with this one. New players. Imagine you're playing Path of Exile 2 with a friend or family member who's completely new to the game, and you're diving into couch co-op mode together. What does the first 5 minutes of that experience look like for you? How do you approach it? Now, I'm probably going to slim down these questions quite a bit because I don't want to waste a ton of time, but that's the general vibe of the question. Seriously, if you're playing with your wife, your father, your son, your friend, some dude you got off the street, whatever, what does that first 5 minutes look like to you? Are you letting them go free? Are you explaining systems to them? Do you think that the game will be able to explain everything well enough to you? You don't even need to help this new player. Stuff like that. I'm very curious to hear Jonathan's thoughts on that in particular. Next question. If you were to recommend an archetype for a new player to try in Path of Exile 2, which one would it be and why? What makes it a great starting point? Really trying to make these very open-ended here. And I know he's kind of talked on this before, but I think that I can prod a little bit, and that's why I'm going to have probable answers that I'm going to fill up in the lead up to the actual interview, and I'll be able to ask some intelligent follow-up questions. Next one. If you had to guide a completely new player through the early stages of Path of Exile 2, would you recommend they follow a guide, or would you suggest they go in blind and figure things out themselves? What would that experience look like? Same vibes as before. I'm very curious to see if Jonathan himself would say, yeah, go to YouTube. Yeah, go to Mobalytics. Yeah, go to a creator Discord. Yeah, go ask other people. Or if he is confident somebody will be able to, without getting frustrated, reach endgame and beyond in Path of Exile 2. And to be honest, guys, a lot of these questions, I might replace them with endgame questions depending on what we see at the live stream. Next one. During testing, what did actual new players find most challenging about PoE2, and what aspects of the game did they seem to enjoy or find the least difficult? Pretty straightforward question. Next. I've heard that even the original Path of Exile playtesters struggled with certain aspects of PoE2 testing at first. Can you talk about when that shift occurred and what changed to make things click for them? So this is talking about what some devs said. They said that people who have played the original Path of Exile, they've played PoE 1, and then they hopped into PoE 2. They were struggling. They were having a really tough time. And people who had never played before were having a better time than them. And then something changed. What was that something? That's what I want to figure out. I want to kind of dive into that, pry open what that change must have been from Jonathan's perspective. Now we move into development. As we approach the release of Path of Exile 2, what has been the most challenging aspect of its development over the past 5 years? Any surprising hurdles or lessons learned along the way that we haven't heard about yet? Gotta add that at the end there. It can't be something that we know about, you know, the addition of WASD, adding the default attack, this whole database debacle. I want something new there, and I will pry. Next, development. What were the key factors that influenced the decision to launch early access with only 3 acts and 6 of the 12 classes available? Was it more about timing and readiness, or were there other considerations that shaped this choice? We might find out about this on the live stream, but if we don't, going in, I'm asking Jonathan, I kind of want to know. Next, items. Since our last conversation, how has the philosophy behind Path of Exile 2's items evolved? Are there any major shifts or ideas that have influenced the way items are designed in PoE2? If you'll all remember, it was in my original interview back in March where we learned about the tier system for items. where we had tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on and so forth drops that made these rare items better, more powerful, better mods, better rolled mods, and all the like. I don't think we've seen any or heard anything about that since. I'm really curious to see how that system has evolved since they are pushing less loot, more powerful loot, as we read in the PC Gamer article. Next up, what's one of the most surprisingly cool or unique items in PoE2 that players might not expect? What makes it stand out? And I am specifically talking about unique items here. So yes, a unique. I want to hear something new. I want to hear something that is only in PoE2 and not in PoE1. I'm going to try to get a little bit of new information out of Jonathan during this interview. Next, beyond the early game, how do you envision players interacting with the game's shops and the gold economy in the long run? What role do you see these elements playing as the game progresses? Another standard question that I think Jonathan can really elaborate and dive into on. This was something that Havoc discussed in his recent gameplay overview, in which he stated how powerful the shop was, and the meta was not to get crafting shards or farm stuff, farm items. It was to farm for good items. It was to farm items to then sell for gold, to then gamble to try to get a powerful magic or rare item from the vendor. That going to continue into endgame? Is that the thought? Or is gold going to be used for the currency exchange market, which will be in Path of Exile 2? I'm very curious to see if that philosophy has evolved as time has progressed. Now, my ascendancy question. Last time we spoke, you mentioned your favorite ascendancy was a particularly powerful one for the sorceress. I think he said it was busted. Can you share how that concept evolved over time and what made it to the live game? We might see this in the live stream. If we do, I'll take this out essentially. But if not, I really want to see how his favorite ascendancy class that they were designing back in March of 2023 evolved over time. Next up, combat. When you play PoE2, do you tend to use a controller, WASD, or mouse at this point? How does your preferred method of play affect your experience within the game? I really want to see if there is now, and I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to kind of ask, what does GGG prefer? What do testers prefer? Is there a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? Is it 80% controller? Is it 80% WASD? What's going on? What do people truly prefer? I really want to hammer him on this question and see what feels the best for how skills are designed in PoE2 and how the game plays. Because from what I've played, controller, I'll pick it up right here. Controllers feel really, really good, guys. And I have a pretty cool one here. So I'm probably going to try one out. I'm curious how many of you will try one out. Okay, another combat one. In your opinion, what's the most fun skill to use in PoE2 and what makes it so enjoyable for players? Very basic question there. Another, from your perspective, which boss in the early access of PoE2 is the most challenging and what makes it such a tough fight? I want to dive in because he's not the boss designer. I want to see what he sees as a badass boss fight. How exactly does he think he is challenged? Is it lots of fast attacks? Is it big AoE effects? Is it just being able to react to a quick swing? What is it? I'm really curious to see what Jonathan thinks about that. Now, some miscellaneous questions. This one is a little controversial. I really want to ask it though. Do you guys think I should ask this? There's been a lot of community discussion, we'll call it discussion, around MTX, especially the Goblin troop in towns. How does Grinding Gear Games view this feedback, and are there any thoughts on how to address player concerns, or is it just a consequence of the design of the MTX? For those of you who do not know what I am talking about, the Goblin troop is in the current set of core supporter packs that are about to be replaced, and if you haven't heard it before, it's spammed in towns right now in PoE1, and people are worried about it being spammed in towns in PoE2, which will suck because a lot of people will use this to troll other players, even though we're supposed to really take in the new fantastical environments of PoE2, the new musics. And if you don't know what it sounds like, I'll play a clip of it right now. Yeah, that's the Goblin troop. So imagine hearing that in every single Path of Exile 2 town. I really want to hear if Grinding Gear Games, they obviously read this feedback. Will they ever do anything to address it? Or is it just something that they have accepted as being a part of the game and their monetization strategy? Right, moving on to the next miscellaneous. Are there any plans to introduce challenges with cosmetic rewards in PoE2, similar to how it was done in PoE1 leagues? How do you see the concept fitting into the new game? I am a big challenge nerd. Love getting challenges. Would love to see some in Path of Exile 2 early access from the outset, being able to earn some exclusive MTX. I'm that guy. That's right. And then lastly, how excited is your family for the launch of Path of Exile 2? Do they share in your enthusiasm for the game? And how do they feel about the upcoming release? I know this is a bit of a personal question, but I know Jonathan does have a family, and if he's anything how I think he is, I bet he talks about the game, his work, at his home, with his family, his kids, his wife. And I really want to hear if they have any opinions, strong thoughts on Path of Exile 2 at all. So those are all of my questions as they currently stand. Of course, things can change when the live stream happens. I might think of some new questions. I have a set of currently 18. It's a decent sized set, but lots can change as the live stream comes and goes. And between now and my interview on Tuesday, November 26th at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. CET. I'm going to repeat that time a few more times. If you have any questions that you think are worthwhile, leave them in the comments below. If they are highly upvoted, I will add them to the list. And if they're really, really good questions, then I will ask them to game director Jonathan Rogers. And now to the Path of Exile 2 hype train for early access. Jonathan Rogers is a part of the hype train, yes, but he does not kick it off. And he was not why this was originally put together. I reached out to all these different creators, people who I disagree with, people who I don't know, people who I've never talked to, people who I've talked to plenty. And I had one goal in mind. I want to unite the Path of Exile 1 and 2 and Diablo communities. I want to say, hey, there are all these people of differing thoughts and opinions. They can sit down, they can chat with me, they can give their thoughts about Path of Exile 2 in pure honesty. What do they love about the game? What do they hate about the game? What are their fears, their hopes, their dreams? Where do they think grinding your games is falling short? Where are they knocking it out of the park? Do they just think that this is a bad game and this was all a bad idea? Well, if that's the case, they're going to get to voice it on this Try Talks 2 series named the Path of Exile 2 Early Access Hype Train. All these chats are designed to be between 30 minutes and 1 hour. They will be live on YouTube and Twitch. The VODs will be posted on YouTube afterward, cut down a bit if necessary, and the goal is for each of these chats to be wholly unique. I don't want to sit down and talk to Ziggy D and have it feel the same as talking to Sammy Caps or Lighty or Schwingy or Captain Lance 9. All of these should be thoroughly entertaining and entertain new, different, interesting viewpoints from all these different creators and myself. I'm doing a great deal of research into all of them before the actual sit-down chat. Right now, when Path of Exile 2 comes out, beyond, I want to make sure that I am well prepared, and I want to make sure nothing feels samey. The big thing here is making sure that people feel like they are informed about the opinions of these pivotal figures and upcoming stars in our wonderful community, and to make people feel as though they can express differing opinions without being completely shut down. I'm really looking forward to this series of chats, and it's really only just the beginning. I'm going very hard on the grind these next 50-some days, but there are some new surprises in store. I know that the Jonathan Rogers interview was a surprise. I am also attempting to schedule multiple developer chats and interviews with people at Grinding Gear Games and beyond, perhaps some commentary on Path of Exile 2, gameplay of mine, behind the scenes stuff. I have a bunch riding on this early access hype train, and if I'm able to conduct it efficiently in a way that really entertains and wows all of you watching, this could be the start of something truly fantastic. So I really hope that you end up enjoying the hype train. If you think it's getting a little samey, please let me know in the comments of these videos. I want to do my best to make sure each one of these is as entertaining and enjoyable as the last. And for those of you just watching and not listening, I am now going to read through all of the individuals that I will be having on YouTube and Twitch Live to talk about Path of Exile 2. Silver XYZ, Dreamcore, Off Meta Michael, Jorgen, Captain Lance 9, Big Ducks, Jonathan Rogers, Gazi TV, Schwingy, Forever Exiled, Zizarin, Subtractum, Ziggy D, Palsteron, Surgog, Gavrin, Action RPG, members of the Talkative Tri community on the day before launch, Lighty, as in Lighty all for one, not Lighty as in Ben, Born Ready, Arrow, Sammy Caps, Travic, Localhole, Havoc, RP Gigan, Hog, Tripolar Bear, the original Tri, Darth Microtransaction or DM, Steel Mage, Frosty LaRue, Kitten Cat Noodle, Valina, Ifin Jeff, Catmaster OP, Valor Mage, Kraken Null, Fusion Gaming, Rax and Tarax, Pox, Cyclone, Peter Masijezek, I cannot say that name properly, I'm so sorry, Fervor, Lycan, and finally, I'm really hoping to end where we all begin with Dreamcore and Silver XYZ. And like I said, I am working on some surprise developer chats with various people at Grinding Gear Games, not just in one area. I'm talking about sound, music, level, items, skill, all that sort of stuff. I think those could be very insightful as well, but I have to get them approved by some certain people at Grinding Gear Games before I pursue those. And as promised, tonight we will be attempting to open a Valdo's puzzle box, a physical Valdo's puzzle box that has been sent to me by Grinding Gear Games. Now, I've seen 2 people successfully open theirs. I haven't seen them actually do it, but I know, but it's inside. I saw Zhongron open it, and I saw Darth Microtransaction open his. Both of them had the ability to redeem a unique Path of Exile 2 item. As in the ability to create your own Path of Exile 2 item once early access has released. No idea if that's what's going to be in my Valdo's puzzle box, but we are going to find out together live on YouTube and Twitch tonight around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to be there to cheer me on or just show me how to solve it, I would gladly appreciate your help and support. Speaking of my fellow exiles, thank you so much for all of your help and support these past few days. I am so excited for early access, and I hope you can see that I really am putting in the effort to do something unique in the Path of Exile scene and community, and I really hope you enjoy it. If you haven't already, like I said at the top of the video, make sure you hit the like button if you ended up liking the video, and to subscribe to Talkative Try for more unique Path of Exile 2 content. And if you want to see it really fast, hit that sub notification bell. Anyways, my fellow exiles, I will see you in the next one. Hala Kara.